On to the first slide. So my name's Adam. For those that don't know me, I'm the co-founder of Assemble U, and I've been creating and building online training for the last 10 years. I also host the Learning Challenges and the Power Skill Project podcast, which is why I've got quite a good microphone in front of me, and why I'm a bit nervous about live webinars, because I'm used to being able to edit what I say afterwards. Here at Assemble U, we help empower people by giving them learning and formats they actually want to use. For example, our library of Power Skills lessons that are available as short podcasts. And I'm joined today by the always fabulous Liggy Webb to talk about a set of behavioral skills we like to call Future Human. Liggy is an award-winning and best-selling author, presenter, and international speaker and consultant. She's recognized as a thought leader on human behavioral skills and works with a wide range of businesses. She's published over 35 books and has helped organizations like the NHS, BBC, Walt Disney, and the United Nations. And she also co-hosts the Future Human audio series, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. Welcome, Liggy.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Adam, and hello, everybody.
So in this session, we're going to talk you through what Future Human is, why we believe it's important right now, and then we're going to take a quick look at each of the behavioral skills within the Future Human framework and discuss what it is, what the benefits are, and look at ways we can develop each of those skills as well. One thing to say just on the actual slides that you're seeing, they are quite basic. You don't have to look at the slides. Think of this as a live podcast recording. If you want to take your eyes away from the screen, switch off for a bit, switch off your eyes for a bit rather, you're very welcome to, and you can just listen to this and still get the full effect. So on to our first question, Liggy, and that is, what is Future Human and where did it come from? Do you want to kick us off?
Well, like all good things, Adam, it started with a conversation, didn't it? Because Adam and I had both been working on various different projects with lots of different clients. And we actually sat down one day and started the conversation around how can we help to support people to be fit for the future? There are so many different skills that we really need to kind of like focus on and prepare ourselves for. And one source of really excellent information is the World Economic Forum. And every 5 years, they bring out a Jobs for the Future report where they identify lots of different skills that we need. And Adam and I were both, fascinated with this research. So we had a really good look at this. And then we started to investigate further. We looked at various other resources, but we also spent a lot of time talking to our own clients around, what are the kind of challenges? What are the kind of things that you feel are really important? We looked at various competency frameworks that organizations use. And we use all of that research to develop this model, this series, we've called it the Human Future Human series, rather, with all the different skills that we need. So it's not the definitive list, I must say. We are dynamic as human beings. The world is changing around us all of the time. So clearly there are going to be other skills that will evolve over time. But it's 10 core skills that are really going to help people to be able to navigate what can often be a very volatile, very uncertain, very complex world. Then we feel that these 10 skills are going to be highly useful. Right at the top, you can see resilience, subject very close to my own heart, subject I feel personally is probably the foundational life skill, springboard for all the other skills that we're going to talk about. So looking at resilience, how we can be flexible, using our initiative. We'll go into more detail with all of these, really important. And obviously, as you can see, time management, curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, empathy, very important that that's on the list too, how we collaborate with others. And we're living in an ideas economy, so putting ideas into action faster than the competition is very much what's at the heart of a lot of organizations. So we're very excited about this model that we've created, and we'd really love to share with you some of those skills and give you a few nuggets, a few tips for you to be able to take away from today.
Yes, exactly. And of course, all of this against the backdrop of the, evolution of large language models and AI over the last year or few years in particular. And so, we really wanted to get to the crux of what are the key human skills, those real kind of human things that are very difficult to replicate, that are very unique to us, that we should be working on, that we can develop, that we can get better at. And again, that formed the kind of basis for this this framework as well. Let us know in the chat any skills you think we're missing. That was our first question, and we really want to know, because like Liggy said, this is an evolving piece for us. You know, we have a nice list of 10 here, but actually we think there's probably stuff that's not on there that could be, that should be. So yeah, definitely let us know your opinions on that. All right, on to the next slide. So Liggy, why Future Human? Why this set of skills in particular right now?
Well, we're living in a challenging world, let's face it. We're living against the backdrop of the fourth industrial revolution, which is all about rapid technological advancement. And we're moving towards the fifth industrial revolution, which is going to be very interesting. I'd love to have a crystal ball here and be able to see how the world is going to pan out in the next sort of 10, 20, 30 years. I think we're living in very exciting times, but it can also create quite a lot of anxiety. I know for many of you out there, I'm sure you're having some interesting conversations and debates about artificial intelligence. You know, where's that going to take us? What are some of the challenges going to be for people in the workplace as well? And I guess the view that both Adam and myself have, you know, when we're having these conversations and we're creating this model, is how important it is for people to be proactive. It's really important that we prepare ourselves for the future. And the more that we can collate a toolkit of resources and behavioral skills that are going to help us to be more agile and to be more prepared, then that's going to help us as human beings. We also strongly feel that it's about keeping people and human beings at the heart of everything we do, because the future is exciting, but the future is human as well. So there are a lot of things that we need to anticipate and we need to think about right now in order for us to be fit for the future. So it's about being proactive, it's about being well prepared.
Yeah, and for me, it's about control as well. It's about feeling in control of our own destiny rather than external factors controlling where we end up in the future. And I think, you know, thinking about these sorts of skills in particular and honing and improving them gives us the opportunity to be proactive. And there's a Malcolm X quote, Liggy, that you used in I think in one of the episodes that we've recorded on this, which is the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. And I love that. That stuck with me, and I made a note of it because I thought that was brilliant. And also, you might see on this slide, we had my idea when I put it together was I'm going to have multiple reasons why Future Human. There's loads of reasons, but we put the first one down, preparing for the future, and we're like, you know what? Actually, that's the only reason we need. It's worth it for that, and that's why we just left it at that. So if you're thinking, why aren't those other circles filled? That is why. Yeah. Liggy, shall we move on to our first skill?
Absolutely.
Cool. So this first one is resilience, and as Liggy might have mentioned, it's something of a favorite of hers. In fact, she has a very, very good book that she published on this. So if you type Liggy Webb resilience, you will find that, and it's definitely worth a read. But can you kick off, Liggy, by defining this term for us? What is it? Or actually, and I know to ask this now, what isn't it?
What isn't it? Yeah. I think before I define what resilience is, just to share what resilience isn't. So resilience isn't about toughing it out at any cost to the detriment of your well-being. And I do see people doing that, you know, toughing out, just got to get through situations, reaching out for unhealthy coping mechanisms. Resilience and well-being go very much hand in hand in many ways, because this is about looking after ourselves. It's prioritizing our self-care. That's really key. Resilience actually comes from the Latin verb resilia, which literally means to jump back, because resilience is about recovery. You know, all of us inevitably are going to go through disappointments, through setbacks, through painful experiences and challenges. How we recover through those and doing it in a healthy way is going to help us to be able to build our inner strength so that we can deal with things in the most positive and optimistic way possible. So that's what resilience is all about. And I won't go on and on and on like I usually do, Adam. I'll keep it nice and tight, nice and succinct. But
We've
it's a
got
great
10, we've got
subject.
10 of these to get through. So yeah, I'm going to be cutting you off, I think, a few times during this session. But yeah, Liggy's done tons of work on resilience. So I encourage you to look into that more. But let's talk next about the benefits. Let's name a few benefits, and then we'll finish resilience by going through some of our top tips on how to be better in that area.
Yeah, I guess, the benefits of being resilient means that we are capable of dealing with adversity. We're capable of dealing with relentless change, and we're capable of dealing with setbacks. So it really helps us to be able to do that. And also, when we're resilient people, we're much more open-minded to learning and growing. So I think in terms of our own personal potential, when we cultivate that resilience, we have the strength and the confidence to be able to expose ourselves, to step out of our comfort zone.
Brilliant. And what's your top tip? And this is going to be really difficult for everybody listening, because we're going to try and just do one tip each on this. And we've got, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 10 each probably on them. So what's one of your top tips on resilience? How can people actually, cultivate and develop this skill?
Yeah, you're right. There are so many, but my number one top tip when it comes to resilience is to be curious. And I think one of the most powerful questions that we can ask ourselves when we're going through any kind of adversity is, what can I learn from this situation? Because when we open our minds to the learning, it helps to dispel some of the anxiety and the fear that we might have. So being curious is a wonderful skill in terms of building our resilience.
Great. And for me, it's about making conscious choices, I think. So choices that positively affect our lives over the choices that are easy to make in a lot of cases. And unfortunately, the easy choice is rarely the one. The easy choice is the hardest choice, or the right choice is rarely the easiest one to make. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
I got my words
Very
out
true,
eventually.
though. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and those kind of inflection points that you get in your life where things aren't going so well, or something bad has happened, life has thrown something at you. To be able to be aware enough to step back and make a conscious choice about what to do next, versus reacting or reacting with, whatever first comes to mind, or having, emotionally reacting to the situation, is so difficult to do as a human being. Like, it's one of the hardest things you can do. But my top tip, I think, is if you can just start off with, recognize when that's happening, and when you're doing it, that's your first step towards being able to take that step back and make a conscious choice. And I think that is that for me is an amazing way to help think about and develop resilience. Right. Flexibility, Liggy. Let's start by defining flexibility. We're not talking about being good at yoga here, are we?
Well, we might do, but flexibility is the name of the game, isn't it? We need to flex, as my nephew tells me often here, but we do need to be really flexible in our approach. And flexibility essentially is about being able to adapt in a really kind of agile way to the world that's changing around us. So definitely a very important skill, because we're going through relentless change.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's kind of the benefit for me. If we move on to the benefit of this, is kind of change is one of the few certainties in life, if you like, along with taxes and death and whatever. Change is probably, I'd put it up there with those other certainties. And being able to flex and adapt and learn will dictate whether you thrive or just survive in a lot of cases. And so I think this one is a super important skill for that reason alone, almost. Any other benefits that we're missing?
Well, lots of benefits. And again, the list is very long, isn't it? Because there are a lot of demands and pressures. And as you say, quite a lot of change that is put on us. We would never have asked for some of the changes that go on, but our ability to be able to adapt to changing circumstances and changing situations, being dynamic, I think that is a really important area of flexibility. So dynamic flexibility is probably going to be helpful.
Brilliant. And what's your top tip for this one then, Liggy? What should people be thinking about in order to develop this skill, or help develop it in others?
Okay, my top tip for flexibility is to be very aware of getting stuck in a rut. You know, we are creatures of habit. Quite a lot of stuff that we do habitually. And we can get ourselves into this kind of routine, get ourselves a bit stuck. So my suggestion is every single day of your life, think about doing the little things differently. You know, if you've got a way that you go to work, go a different way. If you've got a place you go and sit and eat your meals, go and sit somewhere differently. If there's a usual program you watch on telly, watch something differently. It's the little tiny things that we do that can help us to stop getting in too much of a rut. So exercising our minds and building that cognitive function, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, and my one is actually don't get hung up on the how. And I like this one a lot, and I like it in business as well as, you know, in kind of personal life, because I think it's great to have a vision and a goal, but how you get there should remain flexible. And there's a Jeff Bezos quote, you know, like him or loathe him, that I always go back to, which is, we're stubborn on vision, we're flexible on details. And I love that. It's a great mindset to have. Be clear about what you're trying to achieve, but don't get hung up on how you actually get there. And if you do, you risk a closed or a blinkered mindset where, you know, you could be missing out on other way more important or interesting opportunities. But yeah, I think as long as you know your core values and are true to what you're trying to achieve, how you get to that end goal should be flexible. And like you say, you should be able to adapt and react to the external environment around you, which a lot of time you don't have any choice about. The only choice you have is that flexibility. You know, how do you react in those moments, in those situations? And again, that actually goes back to resilience as well, doesn't it, Liggy? And I think with most of these skills, there is almost like it almost drops back to resilience a lot of the time, doesn't it? We're always kind of end up going back to it, and that's why that's our kind of top skill, or our first skill we look at here.
Yeah.
All right, should we go on to the next one?
Yep.
We're doing well. Time-wise, we're doing good. I think we're on it, which is great. So this is initiative. So can you just define initiative for us? How do you understand this word?
Well, in a way, it's doing things without being told to do them. I think sometimes we spend a lot of time waiting to be told what to do instead of tapping into, you know, some of our own experiences and our own skills to act on those. So definitely using our initiative. We're living in a world where we're more reliant now on self-directed learning, on people being much more aware of their own personal journey and their own personal development. So acting on our initiative is going to be really helpful.
Great. Any other benefits that we want to cover in that? So, you know, why is this particularly important as a skill to be developing?
Well, there's a couple of words I really like. I really love the word empowerment, you know, when we actually give ourselves power and we empower ourselves to do things. And I think acting on our initiative is part of that empowerment. It's also very liberating as well, to not always have to be told how to do things. And it also helps us as well to be able to build that pot of resources, because certainly resourcefulness and initiative go hand in hand. But I certainly think it's quite a liberating way of living our lives as well. And again, in a world where we can't be so reliant on always being told what to do, and we don't want to be left behind, or as you said earlier, Adam, you know, we want to be kind of like driving our own plane. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something about, you know, being in control of our own destiny. I think that's something that's really helpful, and using our initiative is something that is going to be really helpful.
Yeah, I think there's hundreds of examples of, you know, in the business world where, you know, businesses that innovate, that where the people use their initiative, and that is encouraged and supported, the kind of the breakthroughs and the way that those businesses maybe stream ahead of other businesses, and businesses that fail to, you know, use their initiative. Things like Kodak in the invented digital cameras, but then sort of doggedly stuck to marketing film, things like that. And yeah, so there's loads of kind of benefits around that in the business and organizational sense as well.
Yeah.
Liggy, what's your top tip around initiative? How could we get better at this?
Okay, and there's an expression, isn't there, that says feel the fear but do it anyway. And I think some of initiative is about overcoming the kind of resistance that we might have, that fear of, oh, what if I do something, I'm going to make a mistake, and really kind of repositioning in our minds how we feel about failure and making mistakes. Because I always score the word out fail and replace it with the word learn. I think that's something that's really helpful. I must just share with you a quote though by Banksy, and I love this quote about initiative. It says, a lot of people never use their initiative because no one told them to. And I think that's quite funny actually.
Yeah, that's a brilliant quote. My top tip is actually along a similar vein, which is try to think ahead. If you might think, initiative, you either have it or you don't. You're one of these people that gets up and does stuff, or you don't. But actually, I think it is a muscle you can practice. And if you're maybe naturally more introverted, not the kind of person to speak up or to take risks, then I think one of the things you can do is foresee issues that might come down the line and have a solution ready for them. So kind of go through that mental exercise of preparing different scenarios in order to make sure that if one of those happens, you're prepared and you're ready for it. So again, that goes back a little bit to flexibility as well. Make sure you can flex and adapt in the right way. But I think when it comes to initiative, look for opportunities, be curious, ask questions, listen with intent. All those things are super important, and they came up with in a lot of our research for the Future Human project when we were looking at this stuff in a lot of detail. I've got a quote on this one actually, Liggy, before we move on to the next one, which is actually one of my favorites on initiative, which is, if opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. And that's from Milton Berle. I think you told me that quote and I really loved it, because I'm like, that is initiative, isn't it? If the opportunity doesn't come along, then go do something about it.
Yeah, I have a little word I use as well, and I really love this word. It's called probopportunity, and it's whenever we have a problem, we kind of, if you like, use it together. It's a hybrid word with opportunity, and it's great because every time we experience that problem, it comes like a little game in your head to think about what's the opportunity in this, and that really helps us, to use our initiative as well.
Liggy has loads of these little words, by the way, of different words combined. So if you listen to the full Future Human series, you actually get an entirely new vocabulary you can use around behavioral skills, which is really cool. Right, let's move on to time management. Personal favorite of mine, but Liggy, explain to us what this one is.
Well, time's valuable, isn't it? What is it? We get 86,400 seconds deposited into our morning time account. We choose how we spend them. There's lots of time bandits around, aren't there? And people that can use or waste your time. So it's how we take control of that time and how we manage it in the most effective way so that we can get the best and the most out of our lives.
Great. And I guess that there's two of the benefits: getting the best and the most out of our lives. Any others we should be aware of?
Any sort of like tips it's not just about us though, is it? It's not just about us getting the best out of our lives. If we're good time managers, then we make great team members, because I don't know if anybody out there has ever worked with anybody who's really not very good with their time management skills, but they end up wasting your time as well. So I think it's a very kind and considerate skill to be able to embrace.
Yeah, we've all been in a meeting with people that didn't need to happen, or where a lot of the conversation that's going on also didn't need to happen, etc. I think if good time management for me, and I've got better at it over the years, has led to a more organized life, which is a calmer life, a more purposeful life. So I know what I'm doing ahead of time. I'm not just constantly reacting to things. I'm prioritizing certain more important things better first, and so they're getting done, and that's having a positive impact on the business, on me personally as well. And it's such a nicer position to be in than firefighting. When you think if things are just coming at you all the time, it's really difficult to be in that reactive state for that long. So I think good time management helps us kind of grab hold of the reins and recontrol that those elements of our life. Liggy, what's your top tip here? I've got a couple as well.
Okay, well, my top tip for time management is eat the frog. So I'll share this with you. I read a book by Brian Tracy, and this actually comes from a Mark Twain approach, because Mark Twain once said, if the first thing that you do in the morning is eat a frog, then everything else on top of that is going to be fine, because it's probably about the worst thing you can do. And eating the frog in Brian Tracy's book, great book on time management, is about the thing you least like doing in the day. Do it first, just get it over and done with. And it really helped me, because I used to be a real procrastinator, and it'd be like the sword of Damocles, this task I didn't really want to do, and I'd make myself do it first thing, and you just feel so much lighter and so much better. So my top tip is eat the frog.
Cool. Well, mine's actually a layer back from that, but then I guess I've got some specifics as well, which is find a system or set of systems that work for you. And there's lots of different ways of managing your time out there. I think one thing that's always stuck with me is that, you know, the human mind is a lousy filing cabinet. So if you are trying to organize your life and organize your time, don't do it all in your head. You know, find a system, find a software, find a spreadsheet, whatever that works for you. Over time, mine's evolved from a paper list to an Excel spreadsheet to tools like Asana and Monday and stuff like that. So, you know, utilize all of those and find a system. But there's a couple in particular that I wanted to highlight. And actually, Stephen, who I know in the comments, has just put one of them. So one of them is time boxing. And there's a brilliant book that's just been released by Mark Zhao Sanders, who's the CEO of a learning company called Filtered. Many of you on the call may know Mark or have seen him before, but he's just written a book with Penguin Random House, and it's called Time Boxing: The Art of, you know, doing one thing at a time. And that's a really powerful way to take control of your day and purposefully put in all the different things that you're trying to achieve by literally putting in your calendar, right, I'm going to do this at 11:30, this at 12, this at 1, etc., etc. And one of the things he said, which I really liked about it, is it's enabled them to, you know, to actually plan more personal time as well. So this isn't just about work, but this is kind of planning more time to do the other things that you want to get done, because you are able to get all that other stuff done that you need to during the day. So I think that's an important one. Time boxing, have a look at it. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. But my absolute favorite, and the one that I actually use daily, is the 4Ds, which is do, delete, defer, or delegate. So anything that comes across your desk, emails, you know, notifications, whatever, you've got a choice of doing one of these 4 things. You either do them, get them done quickly as you can. You defer them to another time. Maybe you don't have time right now, but it goes onto your list, and you get to it at another point. You delegate it to somebody else. That could be somebody who works for you. It could be somebody who is just better placed in the organization to deal with that request as well. It doesn't have to be you know, you don't have to have people working for you in order to delegate in an effective way. And then the 4th one, and my absolute favorite, is obviously delete. So right, this isn't worth my time. I'm getting rid of that, and just be a bit more kind of, I guess, brutal about the things that you do focus your time on, and that you don't focus your time on. So yeah, those are my top tips. And I love Eat the Frog as well. That is also one that I'm trying really, really hard to get that most difficult thing done in the morning. So maybe we should do our webinars in the morning next time, Liggy, so we
Yes.
get like the hard thing out the way, because I've been thinking about it all day. So yeah, it would be nice to do that. Right, I'm curious as to what we're looking at next. Oh, it's curiosity. Would you look at that? So we are on to curiosity, one of my favorites, and actually one we've sort of talked about throughout this session already in a few of the skills we've looked at. What is curiosity, Liggy? Let's start by defining it.
Curiosity is being interested in the world around you, interested in people and conversations that you have. So having that kind of like open mind and being interested. I must share with you, because this is so lovely. My mother, actually, she's 90 now. She's gone to live in this retirement village, and she's got 2 of her best friends. One's 94, and she's actually in the Guinness Book of Records, because she's one of the biggest, she's one of the oldest wing walkers in the world. That's where they tie you to the front of a plane. Betty, and another friend, Margaret, who's at 96. They're amazing. They are absolutely amazing role models, but they always say how important curiosity is. Never lose interest. And I think really that's what curiosity is all about.
Yeah, never losing interest, even in your late 90s, walking on the wing of a plane. Yeah, that's brilliant. So what are the benefits here? Because I think this is one of the skills that has tons of benefits. What are we looking at?
Well, I think, as I've described with my mother and her gang, they're so interested in everything. So, it's finding life exciting, isn't it? And you know what? Blessed are the curious, for they shall have great adventures. It was Eleanor Roosevelt who once said, if I was a fairy godmother and I could grant my fairy godchild just one gift, it would be the gift of curiosity, because I think it keeps us as interested. As I said, when it comes to resilience as well, when we're dealing with difficult situations, when we're interested in those situations, it helps to dispel some of that anxiety. And I think it also helps us in our relationships as well. When we're curious about other people, that really helps us, because everybody we meet knows something we don't know.
Yeah, very much so. I think also in an organizational and business sense, and why I guess there's a lot of people in learning and development on this call. Why should we care about this as a in the world of learning and development? Um, for me, curiosity is the fuel or the engine, if you like, behind innovation in a lot of cases. So innovation is one of the ones we're talking about on this list, but curiosity really lights the fire for innovation. And there was a study by, I think, Francesca Gino, that we found when we were researching the Future Human series, where there was two test groups. One received messages asking them to ask questions about the topic they were kind of working on, and one of them was just asked to reflect, internalize, and not be outwardly curious. And then they tested each group, and after 4 weeks, the first group, the one asking questions, the ones being curious, scored significantly higher than the others, who were just internalizing, just reflecting. So I think that that curiosity is an enabler almost for lots of other skills. It creates better relationships. It helps you develop empathy. It makes you a more interesting person. There's just loads of really quite cool benefits to this particular one. And I think it's coming up again and again in the various at the various talks and conferences and stuff that I certainly attend, and I think there's a good reason for that. How do we develop curiosity, Liggy? Are we not just, are some of us just not naturally a bit more curious than others, and some of us, yeah? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that there's a lot of ways that we can cultivate curiosity, and cultivating a growth mindset, a willingness to be a lifelong learner, which brings me to my top tip, if I was going to share that with you in terms of what curiosity is, and that is find everybody you meet in your life interesting. So when you engage in a conversation with somebody, no matter who they are, what they do, where they're from, be really interested in what they've got to say. Because I personally learn so much from other people, just conversations you have. It helps you to create a different perspective. It can be really enlightening and so educational.
Yeah, I remember I think in the curiosity episode for Future Human, you talked about sitting next to people on trains and starting up conversations with them, and how many great kind of relationships, connections, and stuff you've made just doing that. And those wouldn't have happened had you not been curious about what that person was doing that day.
No, if I hadn't have chatted my husband up actually in a theatre queue, I'd never got married to him. So I'm
There
grateful
you
for
go.
that as well.
All about curiosity. Yeah, and I like that as well. Along a similar vein, I guess my tip is about being intentional. So I was fortunate enough to interview Stefan van Hooydonk just over a year ago for one of the podcasts. It's on the Power Skills Project, actually, if you want to listen to it on curiosity. It's really good. And one of the tips he said, it really, really stuck with me, because I was like, how do you actually develop curiosity? I was a bit, I came into the conversation, I guess, a little bit dubious about whether this was something we could really improve on. But his tip is one of his top tips was very practical, and it's just be intentional with your curiosity. So just ask more questions, listen more than you speak, embrace different ideas, like Liggy saying, talk to more people, find people interesting. But I think going out of your comfort zone intentionally. So if you wouldn't normally go over and talk to somebody, you know, try it out, that type of thing. And just be, well, first of all, awareness, be aware of what you're doing, what you're not doing, and then be intentional about what you want to achieve there. Yeah, the curiosity will, you're tricking your mind, or you're forcing yourself to do it, and you'll start to reap the benefits, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy after that.
Yeah.
Don't take the path of least resistance, even though it is obviously the thing that most of us do, and that I'm very guilty of. Cool. Right. What's next on our list? Creativity. Liggy, what's your, well, let's define creativity for a start.
Well, creativity is a very useful tool when it comes to problem solving, because it's about exploring different ways of doing things. It's about tapping into our ability to be a bit inventive as well. So creativity, I think most of all, is just a very powerful problem solving tool.
Yeah, great. And I mean, to me, that is the main benefit when I'm looking at it, is problem solving. It's about moving forward. It's about enhancing collaboration, I think. And maybe more holistically, it's about, you know, having a more interesting life. I think if you're involved in more creative products and you're letting your mind flex in that way, then yeah, there's lots of benefits that come off the back of that. Any other benefits we should be talking about?
Well, we know through scientific research that doing just one creative activity a day can have a very positive impact on our mental health as well. So creativity is really good for our mental health. And there's so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis where we're being creative. People say to me, "Oh, I'm not really very creative," but we're all creative beings. You know, even cooking a meal is a lovely creative exercise, but it's also very good for our cognitive function as well. And it can be very energizing. So there's lots and lots of benefits to being creative.
Indeed. And what's your top tip? How do we unlock this within ourselves?
Okay, my top tip is quite simple: play. You know, I think as adults, sometimes we kind of lose that inner child, don't we? We're worried about making a fool of ourselves, or we self-limit, or we're terrified of making mistakes. But actually unleashing that kind of innocent child and just going out there and playing, I think that's important. I truly believe in the workplace, we need to create more opportunities for people to be able to play and to be able to experiment, because that's very important for creativity.
Yeah, that actually leads me really nicely onto, it's almost like we've rehearsed this, Liggy. That leads me nicely onto my point, which is psychological safety. I think if there's one thing, and if you're thinking about this as a leader, you know, maybe in learning and development, or just as a leader of any team, how do I get my people to be more creative? How do I develop that creativity in them? Well, create a psychologically safe space for them to fail. So, you know, creativity, if you think of what the opposite of creativity is, it's, you know, people, it's being risk adverse, basically. So creativity is stifled by risk all the time. And so if you can create an environment where creativity is allowed to flourish, people can play, can experiment, can, most importantly, people can fail. And this is a really important step, you know, where failure is allowed, and it's not kind of it's not punished. Obviously there are exceptions to the, you know, to what I'm talking about here, but you get what I'm saying. That's the thing that's going to take us one step closer to unlocking that creativity in people. And I think you can really facilitate this as a leader, and there's a few quite practical things you can do. And I was talking to a client or a partner, I can't remember, recently. And one of the things they did to help, I guess, develop creativity was they actually like formally celebrated failure. So in their monthly catch up or whatever, they're like, right, who has tried something new and who's failed this month? You know, what does that look like? And most importantly, what can we learn from it? But the idea behind that whole thing was like, they got a big pat on the back because they tried to push forward. They tried to be creative. They tried to do something different. And I think that's a real difference. And that's a very psychologically safe culture where people feel fine to fail. And if you can like harbor that, and if you can get that going in a meaningful way, then that will 100% you know, step you towards that right atmosphere for creativity to flourish.
Brilliant.
Right, critical thinking.
I love this one. I absolutely love this one. I
Right.
think critical thinking, if there was one life skill that everybody in this fourth industrial revolution moving towards the fifth industrial revolution needs, is critical thinking. And critical thinking essentially is about not just accepting things at face value. You know, there's so much spurious information out there, fake news, so much stuff that we need to be able to analyze, because really critical thinking is about applying a little bit of scrutiny and analyzing. So we don't just take things at face value. You know, where did this come from? What was the resource for this? You know, is it really credible? I think a classic example of this is when we look at the news headlines. You know, you have this big flashing news headline and you take it, you know, at face value. We can't afford to do that. So being able to peel back the layers and to really kind of, you know, find out whether we're absorbing credible information, that's really important. So yeah, not taking things at face value.
Brilliant. And what are the big benefits here?
Well, first of all, it means that we're going to be able to absorb much more credible and much more well curated information. I also think, as well, for our own cognitive function, it's good to challenge. It's good to be able to analyze things. It's good to make ourselves think. I think that's really, really important to be able to do that. So it can be quite energizing, and it helps as well to support a growth mindset, because you know, if we are kind of analyzing and challenging information, then we're constantly learning and we're constantly growing.
Brilliant. The only thing I have to add to that is I also think it's a good defense against difficult situations, and this almost ties in a little bit with resilience. But I think if you've got a way of critically assessing the information that comes at you, that you're going to feel more prepared and better able to flex and adapt to situations. So I think it's one of those skills that supports some of the others in that way.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your top tip for improving your critical
So
thinking?
my top tip for improving critical thinking is question. You know, when you're actually exposed to information, apply a question in mind. You know, ask yourself, where did this information come from? You know, why am I being exposed to this information? And I think that's going to really help. So questioning, and I think asking lots of open questions as well, rather than closed questions, can be helpful when we're applying critical thinking.
Yeah, and there are a lot of like formal frameworks around critical thinking as well that you can look into. But I think when we were researching for this, one thing in particular stood out for me, which was around challenging the status quo, or just almost flipping around what you see and what you hear, and just not accepting it at face value, and just making sure that anything that does come your way, that you look at, think about, hear about, someone tells you something, like you say, what are the other sources of data that are backing that up? Is that just somebody's opinion, or are there numbers? Is there a study, etc., that supports that hunch? And you can't make all decisions all the time. You don't always have the best data available, but I think as long as you go through that process of making sure you have identified the places you can get the data from and where it is available, then that's a big step towards approaching everything with this challenger mindset, rather than a mindset of just acceptance.
Yeah.
All right. One of my favorites, we've only got a couple more to go. I think 3, including this one. So empathy, Liggy. What is empathy?
Well, empathy is holding space for people without any kind of judgment, without trying to fix people. And it communicates the message that you're not alone. You know, you have a willingness to want to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, to be able to see and understand things from their point of view. And I absolutely believe it's one of the most powerful skills that we as human beings can cultivate.
Yeah, and why is that? What are the benefits here of an empathetic outlook, or dealing with empathetic people?
Well, I don't know about you, Adam, but if I'm with somebody who is listening to me, who's demonstrating they're listening to me, who isn't trying to fix me and solve all my problems, but is just giving me the gift of time to just hear me out, I find that one of the biggest stress relievers. It actually really boosts your confidence as well to know that somebody cares about you enough to want to do that. So I think, that as a benefit is really important. But I think helping us to understand each other. We're living in a wonderfully diverse world. We work with people from lots of different backgrounds, different age groups. It's fascinating. So learning about other people's stories as well can help us to be able to connect and can make the world a much more inclusive place to live in.
Yeah, big time. And there's super clear like organizational benefits here as well. It builds trust within the people in an organization. It often enhances collaboration. It broadens our understanding of each other and the world, as you talked about. And I think it's, for me, it's one of those ones that's probably one of the most important things in a leader that I'm looking for is empathy. If I think about, the people I've worked for over the years, the ones who were really empathetic are the ones that are just fantastic. Actually, the ones I'm probably still in touch with today. Do you know what I mean? So because they made an impression on you, they listened, they helped, and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think you're right. There's some really big benefits to empathy. Um, how do we develop this? What are our top tips here?
I think my top tip is listen. I think sometimes we underestimate the absolute power of really listening. So being present with somebody without any kind of distraction. We're living in a very hyper distracted world. We're always carrying our smartphones around with us. We can get easily distracted, but actually really focusing and attending to listen and demonstrating that we're doing that. I think that's one of the most powerful ways to demonstrate empathy.
Yeah, and I think yeah, definitely active listening in particular. So, listening with the intent not to respond, but to the intent to actually contribute meaningfully. And that can mean asking questions as well. So I think sometimes people think active listening is just, about engaging or listening without responding. But I think if you can ask the right questions, and like Liggy said earlier, if someone is asking the right questions without trying to fix you, it feels like they're really engaged, and you can kind of feel that empathy emanating from them. And my other one is just putting people, put yourself into the shoes of others and take time to understand their perspectives. And this is something that came up a few times when we were looking at this topic. But you don't, realize you don't have to agree with someone's perspective to understand them. You can disagree with it, but understanding where they're coming from on their point of view will really help you develop that kind of that core skill of empathy and help you understand them better. You still don't have to agree with them, but you will at least you at least understand where they're coming from. Right. On to our next one. And we're doing all right for time, Liggy.
Great.
We've got 9 minutes left, so we will get through these last two quickly because we've got a really cool giveaway at the end. Collaboration. What are the benefits here?
Yeah, we are on the home run now, so we've only got two to go, haven't we?
Yeah.
Collaboration.
Oh, sorry. Define it first. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. Collaboration is wonderful, isn't it? Because collaboration is about connecting with either another person or a group of people to produce something. And I always think success smells much sweeter when it's shared with others. So it's a wonderful adventure that we can go on with other people. And teamwork is absolutely essential in terms of how we deliver well in the workplace, particularly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. I think the benefits are hopefully obvious. So let's skip to our top tips. What are our top tips here? What would you say your number one tip for improving collaboration is?
Okay, my top tip probably is going to be about listening again as well, because I think when we actually listen to each other, when we listen to different people's stories, that's key, and it shows respect. Because I think one of the most powerful things that helps in collaboration is demonstrating a respect for other people's points of view and other people's contribution. And the other thing, and I'm going to have an extra one here, Adam. I've got to have this extra one because the other thing that I think makes collaboration really great is when we show appreciation. appreciation. So often we're on to the next task, on to the next thing that we've got to do. But that word thank you, showing that appreciation, that can really be where the magic happens. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and if you're in a position to, do it publicly and show others and share that good news and share that appreciation as well. I think that in an organizational environment always goes down really well also.
So I'd like to say thank you for the collaboration with you, Adam, because I've really enjoyed putting together this podcast series with you. It's been a good collaboration.
You beat me to it, Liggy. That was my next line. So I'm just gonna quote Michael Jordan for this one, which is talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. One of my favorite quotes we found. Right, on to innovation and our final skill. And thank you so much to everyone who's stuck with us so far. We hope there's been some interesting things in here. And we're very open to feedback as well at the end. So and questions. So innovation, Liggy, what are we talking about here?
Well, innovation is really about fresh thinking. I sometimes think we get confused between creativity and innovation, because creativity is coming up with the ideas and innovation is how we implement those ideas. I mentioned earlier, we're living in an ideas economy where putting ideas into action faster than the competition is critical to business success. And we all need to have that kind of innovative mindset. We're all innovators, every day of our lives, we're doing things where we have to take innovative action. So it's something that helps us to have fresh thinking as well.
Yeah, brilliant. And what's your top tip on innovation? How do we develop this skill?
I think it comes back to not being afraid, doesn't it? Because sometimes, when we're going to try or implement something new, there's always that question mark in our minds. Is it going to work? Are we going to fail? But as we've said, there is power actually in getting things wrong, because it's how we learn. It would be impossible to get everything right first time. And we're all people in progress. When none of us are the finished article, so we're constantly learning as well. So I think it's kind of challenging that fear of making mistakes, that fear of getting things wrong. So it will take a certain amount of courage, but it's amazing some of the rewards that we're going to benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, for me, I just kind of flip innovation over, and actually, it's rather than innovating, for me, it's about managing risk. So rather than eliminating them, you're never going to eliminate all the risks in something new, but that fear of failure that Liggy just talked about can hold us back. But if you can find ways to manage those risks, go through scenarios as we kind of talked about earlier, and protect the downside, then you will be able to improve in this area, get things going, get things moving. And I think that's a big thing. Think about your risk, manage your risk if you want to innovate. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it hopefully makes sense. I'll end on a quote. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. And that's from Sir Ken Robinson. I like that one. Cool. Right. We've got a couple of things to tell you about and a freebie, and then we'll get onto some questions. So let's fly through this really quickly. So we've taken the 10 behavioral skills that we've talked about today, and we've created a set of audio lessons and audio learning series. And each we go into depth on what the skill is, why it's important, what the barriers to learning the skill, and then we go through practical advice. So bringing in lots more tips and studies and reports and stuff to help develop these skills. This is what they look like, what you can see on the screen. Each lesson is around 20 to 30 minutes of audio, and then these structured lessons are backed up with detailed and summative key point infographics, reflection points, short tests, and that turns them all into a kind of more holistic learning experience. And what you've experienced today is a very, very rapid fire cut down version of the series. There's currently 10 available, and if you're interested in getting your hands on any of these, then stay put for this final slide. So what we've done, because we don't actually make these available to individuals at the moment, we only sell them into businesses. And so if you're interested in buying these for your team, contact Sandy there, sandy@assembleu.com, and she can set up a call to talk you through that. But this QR code on your screen will give you personally free access to the entire Future Human series. So that's all 10 episodes. It'll give you free access until the end of February. So it's a preview link. it won't keep your kind of it won't record where you got up to if you're listening and stuff like that. It's quite basic, but we wanted to keep it really simple and easy for you to access. So scan that link, and I'm hoping that one of my colleagues is dropping the URL into the chat at the moment, so you can sort of just click on that link as well if you don't want to use a QR. And then, yeah, if you want to find out more about what Assemble You does and more about the Future Human series, then you can have a look on assembleu.com. If you'd like to find out more about what Liggy does, then that's at liggyweb.com. And then please do connect with us on LinkedIn. You know, we love to meet you if you're not already connected. That's Liggy's LinkedIn and my LinkedIn there as well. Final couple of things. We are at World of Learning next week. The Assemble U team are there on the Tuesday and Wednesday in Olympia. Come and see us if you like. And Liggy, you're there on the Wednesday, is that right?
And there on the Wednesday, and I must just add, hot off the press, just arrived through the post, very excited, is the Future Human book. And what we'd love to do is to offer everybody on the webinar a free copy of this. So you'll have some details sent through to you, or just email me and I can either pop a copy in the post or I can send you an electronic version of as well. So yeah, very excited about that. I've been reading through it, and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and we're going to have these pocketbooks on our stand at World of Learning next week as well. So if you are coming to that, come and grab one off us there for sure. It is exactly 3 o'clock. We're on the hour, so we're going to wrap up there. But we've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. We hope there are some interesting things in there, and yeah, we hope you join us again soon for another webinar.
Brilliant. Take care. Thank you, Adam. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely rest of the afternoon. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Recording will be with you soon as well if you want that. All right. All the best.